Welcome to this episode of Seeking the Light of a Thousand Suns, where we're diving into the rich and ancient traditions of Yule. With the winter solstice approaching, it's the perfect time to explore the magic and mystery of this powerful seasonal shift. Today, we'll walk you through the origins and lore of Yule, uncovering how people have honored the rebirth of the sun through centuries. We'll also explore some ritual suggestions to help you create a meaningful celebration for yourself and your community. Whether you're new to the practice or looking to deepen your connection with Yule, we've got something for everyone. So grab a warm drink, settle in, and let's celebrate the return of the light together.
We have something for everyone.
I love that.
Yes. I just wanted to say before we started, the the dates and the planetary associations that we're giving examples for on this episode are going to be if you're celebrating Yule on December 21st, and the planetary associations were based off of or any timing, I'm sorry, that we might give throughout this episode would be on Central Standard Time, and you would just have to convert it to whatever time zone you're in.
So some of these planetary alignments for Yule are waning moon, cold moon, oak moon. Phase is the time to start focusing your attention inwards. The waning period is associated with letting go of that which no longer serves you. The moon in Virgo, improve working conditions, relationships with coworkers, organization, healing, diet, and/or success. The moon in house 6 is for a time for refining and perfecting your energies, whether that means focusing on a work project or on your own self-care. The moon energy flow for December is the cycle of birth, death, rebirth, and enduring darkness. Reach out to friends and family. The sun is in Sagittarius, and there's different ways to celebrate for Yule.
I thought it was really, really interesting. Well, first of all, we know that not everybody plans their rituals and their celebrations based on the phase of the moon or the planetary associations or the astrology for certain days and times. But there are those that do, so we did add that here. So the most popular names of the moons are the two that I had that we had written. However, there are many moon names for the December moon. The cold moon is the most commonly known one. And the one that kind of surprised me is if the moon is after, I'm sorry, if the solstice is after the full moon, then they call it the oak moon. I just thought that was really interesting.
That's
That
interesting.
it would be the oak moon if the full moon was prior to the solstice. Um, so as far as like celebrating and rituals and stuff like this goes, I usually start with some of these things. And the reason why I do that is because then I know where the most potent energy flow is going to be toward what I want to work on. The fourth quarter of the year is always more introspective. Not that you can't do magic, but it's mainly the time of year where you're focusing on the self. And the magics that I choose to make a theme for are going to be based on the astrology timing. So, like for example, knowing the things that we just went over, things that I would choose to work on if I was doing magic on the solstice would be some of those things that align with the energies of the evening. since the power flow of the moon is more about, the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, and the moon in Virgo is about improving relationships, and the moon in house 6 is about prioritizing yourself and your own care. That is like the theme that I would choose if I was to do magic on the solstice, would be improving my communications with myself, improving the ways that I care for my body, my mind, and my spirit, and maybe even incorporate a meditation on that theme, and add some things that I feel that I could work on that would improve my whole self.
I like that too. And when you think about, especially in areas where winter nights feel like they last longer and can be dreadfully cold, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like embracing that darkness, but then with the hope of the sun coming up the next morning to slightly warm things up
Right.
and shed that light.
I'm glad that you bring that up, because for a lot of people, this time of year is very dark. It's very hard to do self reflection and introspection. And so, this is also the time of year where you should be checking on friends and family, making sure people are doing okay, because sometimes they've lost loved ones, and the pain is higher at the holidays. Sometimes people have gone no contact, and you can check on somebody that that has gone no contact, not necessarily encouraging the person that you went non-contact with, but checking on somebody else that has gone no contact with family. Opening your doors to neighbors or friends that don't have somewhere to go, um, providing that extra light for their joy and their souls, if that makes sense.
I love that. And that's really important. I mean, there's so many people who get depressed this time of year.
And
So
for
many
all
people.
different reasons.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So some of the lore that we have listed is Sinterklaas, Saint Nicholas, Saturnalia, and Krampus.
I believe that there's a lot more lore depending on the different countries that celebrate during the Yule tide or the Yule time of year. Um, but the stories are really interesting. Like, I encourage people to look up some of these, and read some of the lore, and especially for other countries.
The Holly King is an elemental, or the Holly King's elemental correspondences, winter solstice and Sabbaths.
We forgot to add like the story of um, the Holly King and his maiden. And that would be some good lore to add, since that's what a lot of um, witch practices follow. As far as the rituals and celebrations go, we can add into our Facebook group um, some additional information on the Holly King, the return of the sun, the Snow Queen, the snow elves, and those types of things. We do have some other things that we will touch on, but I will put some extras, and also some recipes, like a ritual template, some book recommendations, and a ritual example for Yule. And if we get enough people that respond to this podcast and show interest, we could do a live celebration or a live ritual for other people to join.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
So to give you some examples of some cakes and ale recipes for Yule to consider, there's gingerbread, bourbon balls. You can create your own ritual template to go with the cakes and ales. And then some of the book recommendations would be A Year of Ritual, Moon Magic, Time for Magic, and The Wiccan Year.
So if our listeners have not listened to the Words of Power in the Witches Pyramid series of our podcast, I suggest going back and listening to the Words of Power, because that helps understand like where the power of the actions with caroling. Gee, I know that you had spent a lot of time with the history and roots and such of caroling. So would you like to touch on that?
Oh, absolutely. First, let's talk about one of the important Yule time words of power, which is also um, it it goes along with ale. So wassail, which is a derivative of Old English, which combines the words was and hail, which means be well or be hail, like have good health. Um, it is also a strong drink, which is typically a mix of hail, honey, spices, mulled apple cider, and a little bit of the history on this. So when pagans went into the forest to grab the great oak tree logs for the Yule log, they would anoint the tree with wassail and bedeck them with wassail soaked cakes, which then was the creation of the ritual of wassailing. In the home, wassail would be poured into a large bowl during feast time, much in the way that some countries do that for eggnog, for example. The host would greet their guests by lifting the drink to wish them wassail, to which then the guests would reply, drink hail, which means drink and be well. So going into a little bit more of the traditions here with the history. So the history of Yule is pre-Christian Germanic peoples. Okay, comes from the pre-Christian Germanic peoples. Its roots are in Northern European traditions. However, being which that it was pre-Christian Germanic peoples, this was part of that map, which was like 5680, even like early BC era, and it covered a large portion of not only Europe, but into what we know now as like Northern Africa and the Middle East and the Mediterranean. There were even some sections in what we know now as Asia. Okay, so that was this huge amount of territory that these Germanic people had control over. And Yule was celebrated in some way or shape in most of those areas. Okay. Um, the belief was with less light and colder temperatures, people would bring sunlight, warmth, and light with candles, fires, foods, festivities, dancing and singing in the homes. Um,
I
also,
was reading on
which,
some of those
yeah,
celebrations, and some of them were pretty much drunken parties, even.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, they really were. It would
Hmm.
it would be a time to just raise that energy, that positive, warm energy. Um, which when you think about it too, would also help to ward off things that a lot of us modern day folk deal with, like depression during the winter times. People back then had group gatherings. They'd celebrate together and bring that warmth together. So, Yule herbs that were used: ginger, cinnamon, rosemary, nutmeg, wintergreen, saffron, just to name a few. And when you think about it, right, a lot of these herbs are things that we utilize even now during the winter months in our flavoring and our drinks, and having cinnamon sticks around the home for the smell.
Right. So
Fascinating.
when you're doing your celebrating and you're planning, and if you're doing Yule solstice celebration, you can incorporate these into your cakes and ale, for example, or any like gathering foods, and incorporate them into that magic, that history.
And speaking of Yule foods, those foods, here's like some of the foods, right? Not all, but here's some to consider. The nuts, which even as time went on, right, and civilizations changed. When you think of nuts, I think of the nutcracker, right? This has been a long standing thing for a very long time, all the way back to ancient people. Nuts, apples, pears, cider, hibiscus or ginger teas, eggnog, mulled wine, gingerbread. Now we are going to be starting up a school, and in the school there's going to be a lot of different classes, and some of the classes will be like cakes and ales. Some will actually also go into fine details about some herbs, and also, like, for example, the health benefits, the medicinal benefits, of course, as well as the magical and spiritual benefits of plants such as hibiscus and ginger. Ginger is a very powerful one. Little history on gingerbread. Gingerbread was, during that time in the ancient Germanic era, gingerbread was considered a specialty bread. Okay. And it was, the spice itself, ginger, was only available once the Crusaders brought it back in the 11th century. So there were incredibly strict laws in place regarding specialty breads, using spices that were rare and only come about so often, right? Um, Gingerbread was a specialty bread and only allowed to be produced during the holidays, thus becoming associated with Yule.
I don't know about you, but for some reason the hibiscus tea really surprises me.
It surprised me too.
Because when I think hibiscus, right, I'm thinking warm temperatures, I'm thinking
Tropical.
sunny time, tropical, right? Summer. Um, But, you know, I seem to forget that a lot of the times the fall and winter months are about harvesting. So, I mean, maybe the maybe the hibiscus tea came into play because it would be after, you know, harvesting hibiscus.
And they do, I guess, I don't know. I mean, I was just thinking about this. They do represent the sun, right? And they're very colorful. I've grown a hibiscus tree and they're just beautiful. The blooms are. They're fast blooming. So you have to catch them before they touch the ground. Um, so you're out there tending to the tree frequently. And then when you've harvested them all and it's time for the tree to close up shop for the winter, then you bring them all in and you have this gorgeous arrangement of colorful petals, which just is so warm and it's like happy energy, a lot like holly and holly's berries. I don't know. Maybe that's, I don't know. I'd have to look into the history of the hibiscus with Yule, though.
It makes sense to bring it in for the winter, though, and think about the fragrance that that would also bring in.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's so good for you. So some of the Yule colors, the colors associated with Yule are actually, some of them are not very surprising since we still use a lot of those colors to modern
Yep.
day. Green, red, gold, white, like the snow, and black. And so it's interesting how that's stayed pretty standard too,
Right.
from ancient times to present.
And I was thinking about that too, like, so back in these times, there would have probably been, you know, these colors and decorating and stuff. And then as, you know, time goes on, then, you know, was a time where Christmas trees were actually lit with candles
Mm-hmm.
and not lights.
Yes.
And then you think about, you know, how they make now lights and they make them, you know, in a lot of these colors. And I think a lot of people lose the symbolism
Yeah.
and what it really means and the history behind it. I think it's just, oh,
Mhm.
that's pretty or that's fun or, you know.
Yep.
Um, so I would make sure that I incorporated some or all of these colors in my celebration and remember that there is a long history and a lot of celebrating and lore behind it.
Well, and like you pointed out, each color has a symbolic representation. And so it would be good for some self-study on the side to learn the color representations, which don't I thought we have a color symbolism
There's a couple of
extra.
them.
Yeah, those are
Oh
good reference.
yes, yes. I need to make out the podcast extra that has color correspondences. Um, but I know that like red represents the Holly King. Um, green represents the Oak King. White represents purity. Silver represents the moon. Gold represents the sun and moon. I'm sure that black probably, I mean, I'm not positive, but I'm probably, you know, symbolizes the death and rebirth. Plus, it also contains all of the colors.
And it
So,
helps to ward off negativity.
yeah.
Yeah. Some of the animals associated with Yule, uh, goats in the Nordic tradition, Yule cat, reindeer stag, squirrels, sacred white buffalo, Yule elf, and I'm going to totally mess this one up, but it's Greek, and I do apologize to all of our listeners. I'm going to do my best here, folks. Are you ready?
Ah,
And if anybody knows the correct pronunciation, feel free to call me out on it. I'd love to learn. Callie, Cans, Zorl,
Oh, you
Let me
gotta
try
say
that
with
again.
confidence.
I know. Wait, okay, here we go. All right. Calicant. Darn it. Let me try again. Calicant, which is an ugly chaos monster in Greek tradition. Trolls, the phoenix, Yule gnome, wren, robins, mice, deer, horse, bear, and snow fairies. And one quick note on the Yule elves, okay? The elves were first associated with Yule as the ancient people knew that the spirits that created the sun inhabited the land of the magical elves. Ancients believed that the sun would return as long as they kept a close relationships with the elves and would get their assistance in making sure the sun would return. So there was this symbiotic relationship with the elves.
I also want to point out that if our listeners are looking into some of these things, you will find that there are some traditions and some pantheons, I guess you could say, work with the snow fairies. And if you don't have any history of working with fairies, any background, you don't know how their world and their hierarchies and all of that works, not to mention their behaviors and such, I wouldn't do the inviting them into the home.
Yep.
I personally know somebody, I don't know that it was the snow fairies, to be honest, but I know somebody personally that invited fairies into the home to stay, and it was a multi-story home, so to stay in the basement. And apparently that didn't go so great. They were mischievous. They were naughty. They moved and hid things. They I don't remember all of the things that they did, but I just remember thinking, are you trying to tell me that cute little fairies are naughty? So if you don't have experience with working with them, don't start off your experience with inviting them in the home. Start off by looking for their rings and learning about them and such, learning to see them and that first, and know something about them, because that would be like inviting a complete stranger that you've never met into your home. Would you do that? Would you invite like a total stranger in to stay?
Not without
Um,
protections in place.
right, right. So just want to put that in there.
Some of the stones associated with Yule are the cat's eye, ruby, diamond, garnet, bloodstone. I like using bloodstone. Serpentine, hyacinth, and peridot. Found peridot interesting because peridot is actually my birthstone
Yep.
for August.
I thought the same thing. I thought that was
Yes.
very strange. But I loved that serpentine was on there, because
Yes.
serpentine is a stone that's known for um, balancing all chakras.
Ooh.
And so when you're thinking of like, the cycle, birth, death, rebirth, and stuff like that, and you're thinking about like the chakras and going into, before using serpentine, going into the state that they're in may not be clear, they may not be balanced, um they might not even be working, and to strip that and then balance it through serpentine, I thought was really interesting.
That's really cool. I'm gonna have to actually use that now that you said that.
Oh, there's all kinds of awesome properties. Serpentine is an awesome stone, but
I know I have some too.
mhm,
Me in my storage of stones here.
yeah,
The gods and goddesses of Yule, the Holly King and the Snow Queen. And we can go into a little bit more detail about them here in a moment. The elements are earth. I should say is earth. One element. Saturday, December 21st, 2024, astrological correspondence for the highest oomph.
for winter, yeah, for winter solstice.
Yes, for winter solstice. Okay, and going into the winter solstice here, the pagan winter solstice symbols. You have the mistletoe, pine, yew tree, holly wreaths, Yule log, evergreen, which is a symbol of renewal and rebirth, and candles. So then for the evergreen, we're going to kind of just, I'm just going to like list these out and give a little bit of the symbolic background. There's more out there though. So the evergreen is a symbol of renewal and rebirth. Green is a color that was associated with the ability or the power over death. As green never really loses its color. It's used to defeat demons and ward off death and destruction. Holly is a symbol of hope. Holly represents actually the masculine element. It is used as decor for homes, windows, fireplaces, etc. It was believed that the prickliness of the holly wards off evil spirits, which is actually kind of cool. It's also the symbol of the Holly King, which represents hope. The red berries represent potency. So when combined, it is a very strong thing to have in the home. Mistletoe is a symbol of tradition and fertility. And actually, mistletoe represents the feminine element. A little bit of history. It was used by Druid priests during the winter solstice ceremonies, as the green of the leaves represented the mother goddess of fertility. The white berries represented the seed of the forest god or oak king. Druid priests harvested mistletoe from the sacred oak trees with golden. I'm totally at a loss.
Scythes.
Scythes. Oh gosh, my brain just died there. Thank you. And while they were harvesting this, the maidens would wait underneath to catch the falling branches and keep them from touching the ground. Okay. And this was very, very, very important to these people because they felt that if these tree branches fell to the ground, that sacred energy inside of them would just pour back into the earth, right? So they wanted to make sure to keep that sacred energy so that they could use it. And actually the branches and sprigs were divided equally amongst everybody. They were hung over doorways for protection against lightning, thunder, and evils. Mistletoe was even worn as an amulet for fertility, or hung above the headboard.
So, okay, two things. So this brings a whole new light to having wreaths on the doors, right?
Mm-hmm.
And why wreaths are hung outside,
They're not just pretty decoration.
right. They actually have an ancient meaning. And I would encourage people that if they're doing a Yule ritual, to grab some supplies that match some of these things from your local Joanne, Michael's dollar store, whatever, and sit down and create your own wreath to hang outside the door. And while you're creating it, connecting and thinking about these properties and where they come from and what they mean, and then hang it outside your door when you're done.
That I was actually thinking about that too. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this will make for a really great project. And it'll also help to really boost that protection of the home. Love that.
So I can't help but laugh about the mistletoe on the headboard.
Yeah, I know.
Because what we all think of, or most of us, I can't speak for everyone, but when you think of mistletoe, you think of hanging it and stealing or gifting and receiving gifts, kisses, right?
Yep.
You see where I'm
Mhm.
going?
I do. Careful who you kiss under that.
Kissing of all areas is now permitted.
Yeah, it is. But really, it's a representation of fertility, and it's a very powerful symbol of it. The Yule tree is actually an important pagan symbol of the tree of life or the world tree. Um, this was the one, as Maya mentioned before, you decorate the tree with candles. Um, in ancient times, it was decorated with gifts people wanted to receive from the gods. So they would decorate it with ornaments like pine cones, fruits, and berries. Um, in addition, they would also have symbols of the sacred gods and goddesses decorated on the tree. Some traditions used garlands of popcorn and berries to string around the tree. Now here's the interesting aspect. One, right, the popcorn and berries could be a representation of abundance and prosperity and being able to feed one's family. But two, the reason why they did it was because it would also feed the birds as well. As there was that connection with nature and helping the birds of the neighborhood, right?
Yeah, and if anybody wants to read up on some interesting things about the Celts or Druids and the Yule tree and the stories pertaining to Yardisol, there's a lot of really cool Norse um, there's a lot of really cool Norse celebrating information and such out there that's really interesting.
The Yule log is a symbol to honor and protect. Uh, the burning of the Yule log began with the ancient Scandinavians. They would gather up massive logs that would fall from the ash tree to honor their god, who was Thor. In Celtic tradition, the hearth fire was lit to prevent evil spirits from entering the home. To keep that fire burning, they would use fallen large oak trees, where the trees were placed trunk first into the hearth, which I found really interesting. Holy, how many people it would take to stick that thing into it was had really big hearths back then. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
just very imaginative or something. But and it would burn and burn and burn, but the last bits were set aside to burn for the following year's fire, so that there was no waste. The belief behind this was that the longer the log burned, the faster the sun would come back to warm the earth again. Candles are another way, or another, they're a symbol of the eternal flame within the home. They symbolize light and warmth, the sun. They're used to chase away evils and lure back the sun, also spelled S-O-N as well. And then we talked a bit about wreaths. They were hung to drive away demons that surface during the dark time of the year. Traditionally back then, they were hung in the morning when people began to wake up, to chase away the dark days and try to herald in the warmer, brighter days to come. Going into some extras here. So Maya, you had mentioned caroling and the history of it. Caroling was a popular Yule tradition where children honored the winter solstice with song. They would go through the different villages, they would sing door to door, and in return, the villagers would reward them with tokens, small gifts, or sweets, which symbolized the food and prosperity given by the mother goddess to all her earthly children. It's a really cool tradition. Almost like Halloween, but caroling.
Right.
So we've gone into some of this, but here's some extras here. So some of the nature symbols of Yule, we've discussed the holly, oak, mistletoe, evergreens. We've talked about pine. There's also ivy, laurel, bayberry, the blessed thistle, frankincense, sage, yellow cedar, fir, poinsettia, and the Christmas cactus. I love the Christmas cactus.
I don't know anything about the Christmas cactus. I'm gonna have to look that up. I'm very, very intrigued.
They're really popular in the Southwest. And so I remember actually for the holidays, one of the bosses where I used to work out in Colorado, he would splurge and he would buy all of us administrative folks each a Christmas cactus. And the one, I know, it was the sweetest thing. And the one that I had these gorgeous, almost like fuchsia mixed with a little bit of red and a little bit of pink. It was just beautiful flowers that would bloom on it. And they would last a long, long time. I mean, it took a lot to kill this plant. It's a desert plant, and it, Colorado being, high plains desert, it was a perfect place for it. So some of the food and drink of Yule, we talked about some of them already, but there's also the Yule log cake, pork dishes, turkey, eggnog, and then we talked about, ginger tea and spice cider and wassail as well.
We didn't ever talk about any of like scents, like if someone wanted to use scented candles or if they wanted to use incenses or oils or anything like that.
Oh yeah. So some of the scents associated with Yule would be violet, patchouli. Patchouli always makes me like giddy happy. Rose geranium, frankincense, myrrh, and lilac. I found lilac interesting because I always associated lilac personally with spring, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah. It's fascinating. I'm gonna have to look that up more too and see about the background of it. And Yule activities. You know, we've talked about caroling. There's wassailing the trees, burning the Yule log, decorating the Yule tree, the exchanging of gifts, carefully kissing under the mistletoe, depending upon what result you want, apparently. So that's another one.
And don't forget some good drunken parties like they did
Oh, yeah,
in the
wassail,
past.
please.
Like our ancients did.
I know. I'd love to actually, I think I like to make my own wassail ale this year using like the spiced, like the mulled spice wine or something of that nature. I'm not a big fan of eggnog because I'm allergic to dairy. So yeah, and it just tastes, it's
Yeah.
thick. But there's a lot of people who love it. Like son loves eggnog, obviously not spiced eggnog, but he's too young for that.
Right. Oh, this makes me think too, like now when we're thinking about fruits,
Mhm.
nuts, berries, think about what like a lot of the most common um gift trays or things that people make for like exchanges, like cookie and baking exchanges, or to gift neighbors and friends. They're usually like gingerbread cookies, or you'll find a nut assortment tin or a berry assortment tin or fruitcake,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about like all of the symbolism that we have kind of already talked about, um, it kind of brings things back into perspective of celebrations of the ancients. Because, I mean, have you ever went through the aisles of like the holiday aisles in like shopping stores or grocery stores, or like, and go, what, where on earth does this um fruit cake, right,
I
come
know,
from?
right?
Like, why is it only out this time of year? Who comes up with this stuff, right? And you think
Mm-hmm.
most, I shouldn't say most people I know um hate it. They don't
Mm-hmm.
even like it.
Well, and the
Mm.
different variations of it too.
Right.
Um, so we think here, right? Fruitcake as being the traditional fruitcake that's served here, which is like, what the is this, right?
Mhm.
Um, I'm a foodie. I am such a foodie. It's starting to show on my face, but I love foods, but I love foods from around the world and from different times. And in France, um, a fruit cake in France would not be the same as what you'd find here. So, fruit cake in France would be like, for instance, plum cake. And just to kind of give you all a quick idea, if you look up French plum cake, right? Because there's also English plum cake too. Um,
Hmm.
it's actually one of my favorite cakes of all time. And I like to make mine either in a flat round or in I even sometimes like to do it in like the angel food baking pan. And what it is it's essentially you're making vanilla or white cake, and you are slicing up those plums, and you are you can do two different things. One, you can make like you can cook the plums in spice, right? Like cinnamon and other spices that might go with it. Or what I like to do is I take quarter sliced plums and I stick it right into the cake. And then on top, because it's a French recipe and I absolutely love it, you do use butter. and you use a generous amount of butter on it. And then you can dust or sprinkle it, right, with like nutmeg or cinnamon or cloves to help bring out even more flavor in it. And then when it's done, you have this amazing tasting cake. But in France, it's considered a fruit cake.
Will
Here
you,
in the United States, it wouldn't be. It's fascinating.
I think you should share the recipe so we can put it out there with our.
No, I'm gonna be selfish. Okay,
Okay.
I'll share the recipe. I won't be a selfish, plum cake hog. I do love my plum cake. It is my favorite. But you can do that with anything, right? And again, it depends upon where you live. There's different meanings to it. So, when you think of even like, pies, different countries, different cultures consider different things pies. It's really interesting. I personally am not a fan of fruitcake here in the United States. I think it's weird. Another thing to consider too is you can theme it up, right? Because that'll having fun with it and putting a theme on Yule time celebration foods, and incorporating the Yule symbolic ingredients and foods. One year, even though I did this for Christmas, I had started my planning, and I had started my planning based more upon Yule, but also upon the variations of Central American, Native American, Mediterranean, and a little bit of Asian and Northern African, as well as Southern European that I have in my family. I love figs. A lot of people can't stand figs, but I decided to do a Christmas Carol theme, right? And thought about the foods that were served to Scrooge and the family in the movie Christmas Carol. And so I incorporated figgy pudding, right? I made sure to put in different spices like the ginger and the cinnamon, because it's symbolic and because it is magical, right? The turkey, using the savory turkey and adding your sage to it, right? You can really stretch out and expand that box of thinking when it comes to this.
I know this is kind of a little bit off topic, but you brought up the Christmas
I went
Carol.
off topic too.
It's really
Food.
super funny. If for those of you that have not seen the Muppet Christmas Carol,
Of the Muppet
it was
Christmas.
super, super, super cute. Super
Yes.
cute. And there is a scene where Beaker is spouting off a bunch of noises and flips off Scrooge. It's very, very funny. Just a little side note in case you've never known.
I have to go back and watch it just for that scene.
Hmm.
I love that. So, some additional deities commonly recognized for Yule.
This is like Yule tide. That like this is gonna be like from December 19th to November 2nd-ish, because there's some significance in these deities with different times of
Mhm.
December.
So, for the goddesses, there are the Great Mother and Earth goddesses, Freya, Gaia, Diana, Bonadea, Isis, Demeter, Horus, Saturn, Sekhmet, the Horns / Fates.
The Norns, they're really also a Norse Celtic pantheon. And the cool thing about the Norns, if you're thinking about doing the past, present, future theme, and the self care or self reflecting for, you know, the death and rebirth coming to, you know, during when the sun returns. Sorry, I'm like really stuttering a lot. My brain is everywhere, but the Norns are really awesome to work with because there's the three of them and they are past, present, and future. Read up on the Norns. They are really something that you can work on or work with, I'm sorry, to help you with guidance on seeing, foreseeing, and helping with decisions and the magic of bettering, you know, your spirit, your self-care.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was thinking about, what you had mentioned earlier. We should do a Yule ritual. Make a themed one. We could. I don't
Um,
know. We'll have to see. But
yeah. I'm not sure if I want to go live with it unless we have responses from people that would like to see or join.
yeah.
Um, and that's because doing ritual actions and things like that um, are going to be really hard to do off of a cell phone camera, to be
Oh
honest.
yes.
There'd have to be somebody else either filming it or you'd have to have one of those AI um, webcams or whatever to be able to do whatever movements you need to and be able for people to be able to see that. Which I'm game for as long as the
Yeah.
interest is there. Yeah.
Exactly. I
So
agree.
I have a story for you.
Tell me.
Um, I went to a witch camp event once. There was a bunch of people that I've never met before. And it was like a whole weekend with workshops, rituals, witch community gathering and camaraderie, and it was really cool. Well, they had asked for volunteers to do invocation of the Norns. And I didn't know much about them. I got a quick recap because there weren't enough volunteers. They needed 3 volunteers. They got 2 and they weren't getting the third. And I finally said, because feel pretty confident within myself. So yeah, I'm like, okay, I'll do the other one. Just kind of give me a rundown so I know what we're working
Right.
with here. And one of the Norns, the Norn I worked with was the past. Now that I'm thinking about what happened. Um, and I had people come up to me while I was, you know, in drawdown. And I would say things to them that would have them burst into tears that nobody could possibly ever know. That was about their past. Like one of the girls that came up, I said, there's a very, very motherly figure. I'm not sure if it's an aunt or, you know, somebody that you really look up to, but it's a motherly figure. And I said, and she's super proud of you and she wants you to know how proud she is. And, you know, I can't remember all of the things that were discussed. And then I said, yeah, I just really get the feeling that this is a very motherly person. And she was crying the whole time. And she said, yep, that was my mom. My mom passed away. And I was like, in awe because I've worked with deities many, many times, but I've never actually had a deity download into me the
Yep.
facts of something specific. I mean, super specific. So if you're looking to do self-improvement, if you're looking to do, some of the things that we talked about earlier, in regards to self-care and um, aligning with your goals and future things, that would be a really good thing to work with, because they really communicate very well, and they do know your tapestry. They do know your past, present, and future. Now, how much you want to believe in their story, that's completely up to you, but the experience for me was amazing. Oh, and don't forget Hekate's birthday on December 31st. You definitely need to celebrate her too.
Oh, wait, I gotta get that on my calendar. I have to. I have to. This is, yeah. Okay, I gotta get that on my calendar right now. Sorry, folks. This is important though.
All right, so
Thank
some of the
you.
gods are Mabon, the sun god, the star child, the oak king, the holly king, the green man, the red man, the horned one, Odin, Lu, Apollo, Ra. Oh, we forgot about Freya. Oh, Freya is in there. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of Hecate devotees, and so I just wanted to throw out there that there is a yearly celebration for her on December 31st, and if you're a devotee, to make sure that you at least acknowledge her on that day.
She is my mama goddess.
So realize this is a lot of information, and it's a lot of information that isn't complete. There's a lot of, we tried to give little brief synopsises, right? Like just kind of give you the cliff notes. But that's kind of twofold. We're limited on time, time for the recording and the amount of time in the researching and all of that. And the other part of it is we're also offering some classes and such that are coming down the pipelines. We're going to be doing a lot of stuff with the Storm and Sky Academy of Mystical Arts. And so we still want to continue sharing free information and sharing things with our community, but for more in-depth stuff, we're going to have a lot of things in there. And I also want people to keep in mind that there's going to be a lot of things in there that you're not going to find in books as well. When it comes to magic and ritual and practice, there's going to be a lot of things that you won't find in books. And that's due to experiences with other groups and being within a dedicant program and an initiate program and things like that. So for the podcast extras in pertaining to Yule, please make sure that you have joined our Facebook group, Seeking the Light of 1,000 Suns, because we'll download files there pertaining to Yule, like we discussed earlier. And don't forget, if you are interested in attending or viewing a live celebration and ritual, to send us a message on Facebook or TikTok. And depending on the amount of interest, we might just go live with that, either on TikTok or YouTube. So please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. We really want our stuff to go out to like-minded people. There's a lot of people in the community that can enrich our knowledge and vice versa. And so as much as we love to share a light and insight, we also love to learn. We know that there's a lot of valuable information that a lot of other people and a lot of other traditions have. And being eclectic, we would love to be able to incorporate and learn and share that amongst communities, safe communities, inclusive communities.
Inclusive is the key word.
Yes. So um,
I
don't forget
do
to
have
like,
one more thing
subscribe, and
too.
share.
Yes.
Um,
And
we're
then, oh, sorry. I
Go
wanted
ahead.
to just insert this real quick because we're going to really be ramping up and talking more about the academy. Um, Incredibly excited for this. There's been
Yes.
so much hard work and dedication put into this. It's not credentialed, so it's not one that you're going to receive a degree or certification from. However, it is going to have extensive amounts of knowledge. Um, think of it as this magical, mystical academy with many different departments and areas of expertise to learn from. There's going to be even the science side. You've got biology, there's going to be chemistry classes, and physics and mathematics classes, um, which will, all of this is going to be related, okay, to all these different ways to practice
And to build upon
these
each
different,
other. Yeah.
yes. And it's exciting. It's affordable. That's the other aspect of it. It is greatly affordable. Um, we both know what it's like to want to do higher education and
Without
not
being
be able.
scammed. There
Yes,
are
without being
so
scammed.
many ways from Sunday that people get
Yes,
scammed. Um, so yeah. Um, we
exactly.
also are going to be working with external practitioners and professionals to assist with classes or materials or background um, as well. So
Yes.
it's not just Gia and myself. However, we are the ones that are
Mhm.
um, getting it off the ground. We're the
We
ones
will be
doing.
your primary professors in a lot of the material. We each have our own expertise. And when I say expertise, I mean we're talking about almost lifetimes worth of study. So you're going to get an amazing and diverse, enriched education. There's even going to be like DIY style classes of woodworking and such. And so it's going to be very inclusive. Acupuncture, aromatherapy, everything like you can think of that comes into the world that is eclectic. So um, I'm like shaking with excitement
Mm-hmm.
internally. So I like internally am spazzing, but I'm super excited and can't
So
wait for this.
I'd like to encourage people to go onto our website, sign up for the newsletter if you want to keep
Yes.
tabs on what's happening. Because as we get closer and closer, we'll be giving out specials and announcements and maybe some discount promo codes, um,
Yes.
maybe some merch. I mean, there's things that will be coming down the pipes that um, we'd like to share with the community. And we'll try to do all of that on our social media channels. But as people start converting to courses, classes, and the academy, that stuff is all going to be a closed group.
Mhm.
That's going to be members only, people that have signed up for and paid for courses individually or package to be able to communicate with each other in the student community.
Think of it this way, and I can't say anything specific because we don't have any rights to say something specific, but just a quick example, an adult version of that school that's in a very popular book series, which then turned into a very popular movie series where they got invitations to it via owls. Hope that was enough of a clue to kind of, have you connect the dots there. But
Rhymes with
this is,
Fogworks.
yes, love it. Yes. This is going to be for grown-ups. It's going to be what you make it out to be. There are different houses of magic within it. There are different path courses that you can take in on the magic side. There's light magic, green magic, dark magic, etc. If magic's not your thing, guess what? There's going to be so much more within it. So,
Astrology and
yeah.
divination and I mean herbology. There's going to be so much that
Music,
yeah.
mathematics. I'm such a science STEM geek, so I'm like super hyped up to be able to teach you all some serious STEM in the mystical arts.
So get on our newsletter if you're not on it. Join our Facebook group if you're not on it. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share so that our community can grow and we can get our information out further to others, even if you're not interested in the Academy or the Facebook group or the YouTube. If you could share, that would, and do us that solid of sharing, that would be fantastic.
Sharing is caring.
Right.
That's what I always teach my son. Well, he already knows it now.
Well, thank you for joining us again tonight. And blessed be.
Blessed be.